Hello and welcome to our channel IASPrimers. Now before going ahead with today's daily news analysis, I have a short message for you. You know all these initiatives that we have, be it this mentorship program or this free evaluation 2 answers every week in our daily news analysis, or this marathon video on ethics. All of this are actually designed so as to help you with your preparation, and not just help you with the preparation actually. It's actually about getting a rank in the civil service examination. Now it is those students who are likely to get a rank who are willing to take that extra step forward. For instance, when I have this free evaluation, 2 answers every week, so at least I'm trying to remove that barrier. So 2 answers every week you can associate with me. So with this, what is happening is that I get to know, okay fine, you are making that effort of seeing that, identifying the question and then writing the answer. So you're more likely to stand out. You're making that extra effort, stand out from the group. So if you are fine-tuned, if you are guided well, you're more likely to deliver on the promise of a rank also. So that is what we are looking at. That is why you are there preparing for this examination. So all we want to do is identify a core group of students and get you a rank in the civil service examination. Right, so that is the idea. Okay, now getting back to this, so news analysis of 9th of May, and today's question is about the judicial system, judicial accountability, so India's judiciary and slackening of trust. So this is a very important theme that is hardly ever often missed actually, so this I wanted to cover. Plus I have some additional measures that need to be taken, so my notes plus law commission reports, etc, etc. Okay, so let's get on with the first article, which is the opinion. So I think read the question first. What do you understand by the expression judicial accountability? Explain its significance in the Indian context, bring out the challenges of accountability in India, and state measures taken to address it. So all of this in 250 words naturally. Okay. So first of all, judicial accountability, what does this mean? So accountability word itself, it means holding someone accountable for their actions, holding someone answerable. Why you have done this, there are certain shortcomings in your work, so asking them questions. So this article that I found was very critical of the functioning of the judiciary, and I have tried to correlate with judicial accountability. Now, when we're talking about judicial accountability, we have to know as to what all tasks does the judiciary do and why is it important. That is the first thing. So judiciary, as we know, first thing is administration of justice. Naturally, there you go, there's somebody has filed a complaint, then the judiciary will decide who's right, who's wrong, all that. So administration of justice. So that is the first thing. So with reference to administration of justice, what is the quality of justice, quality of judgments, time taken for the judgment, time taken, pendency of cases. I'm marking this over here. These are the facts which you can use. Okay, so that is the thing over here. Procedural delays, so the under trials that are there, that are all indications of the issues with the judicial system. Okay, so first is administration of justice. Then in our polity, in the Indian polity particularly, we have the separation of powers between the executive, legislature and judiciary. More or less every institution is equal. But really speaking, judiciary is on a higher plane as compared to the executive and the legislature. How can we say that? The judiciary can hold the executive accountable. They can hold the executive accountable. They are the final interpreters of the constitution and the interpreters of the law that is passed by the legislature. If they feel that the legislature has passed a law that is unconstitutional, then it will be held void. So that by the doctrine of judicial review. So it is on a higher plane over here. So again, it has some sort of an additional responsibility. It has some sort of an extraordinary power, and therefore some sort of a mechanism should also be there that the judiciary is held accountable for their actions. Okay. Then judiciary also has one of the tasks associated with bringing in equity in the society, or as the preamble of a constitution says, securing justice to the people, political, social, economic. So when they say, okay, fine, executive is not doing the welfare work, or it is not able to protect the right of the marginalized sections, then the judiciary, we see, they become active, judicial activism. So they can take, and the constitution allows for that, they can give directions to the executive to fulfill their responsibilities. So it is not just people outvoting the government at the end of the day, but judiciary can also hold the government accountable if they feel that the executive is not fulfilling its goal of justice. Likewise with the legislature also. So that is again a very important task or power associated with the judiciary. And sometimes we feel that when the executive and the legislature is not able to do its task well, then again the judiciary fills that gap. So in light of all of this, in light of all the responsibilities and the critical role that the judiciary plays in our constitution or in our polity, it is very important, it is imperative that we define judicial accountability. So explain its significance in the Indian context. So that is the significance, that is why we want judicial accountability. And if we feel that the judiciary is not doing its task well, judiciary, we are supposed to have trust on it. But if we feel that the administration of justice is not very good, there is high pendency, there is the vacancies are very, very much there, then we feel there is an issue of corruption in the judiciary. For example, this article over here says that the court fees is typically ₹2 in a country. So when somebody files an application or a petition, the fee is ₹2. But to get you the hearing in the court, you have to spend about ₹1,000. So that is a report by, this is the finding of Asian Human Rights Commission. So they say that there are a lot of corrupt practices in the judiciary. There are also high profile cases of corruption. For example, the infamous Medical Council of India case. So judicial corruption with reference to educational institutions, some case had come up. Then the concern associated with judge shopping of the judge, so-and-so case, so-and-so judge should be there, so that the judge will give us the so-and-so judge will give a judgment in a favor, most likely. So when such issues arises, naturally there will not be trust with the judiciary. And when there is no trust with the judiciary which upholds the rule of law, then ultimately it will affect the law and order situation in our country. It will affect the democratic credentials of our polity. So for the stability of the democracy in our polity, it's very important that people trust. And for that, judicial accountability is imperative. Okay. Now, after writing the significance, you can mention some of the issues associated with some of the core issues, 3-4 you just mentioned, like corruption, high pendency, vacancy, all of this you can write over here. So you can see this article over here. So from here you will easily get it. Okay, I have marked here also. Now coming to the measures taken to address it, what recommendations have been given. Niti Aayog proposed that there should be a judiciary performance index, which matches the international criteria for the performance criteria. So that should be done. Then there was a recommendation that judiciary, the high courts particularly, they are responsible for the subordinate courts. And the judiciary is one, it is administrating justice, it is dispensing justice, hearing the cases, and other thing is it is doing the administrative work of the judiciary. So for that it feels that that responsibility should be given to some specialized agency like the IAS, those officers who are specialized in the administrative duties. So to unburden the judiciary. Then there are suggestions associated with introduction of the electronic system, digitalization of the judiciary, so e-courts and case management. So that will reduce the scope of corruption or the bribe that one needs to pay or the issue of the judicial shopping. So all of this could be minimized. Okay, online real-time judicial statistics. Now if you see all of this, ultimately they are bringing in greater transparency. The information will be there in public eye, so people can hold obviously the judiciary accountable if anything wrong takes place or any deviance there is deviance from that, the people can ask questions to the judiciary also. Then there was a proposed National Judicial Accountability Bill 2010, which basically provides for some sort of a code of conduct, standards and code of conduct for judges. And also there will be if you have a code of conduct, some agency should also be there which has an oversight that are these code of conduct being implemented or not, what changes have to be done with reference to the code of conduct, so all of that. So for that there should be a National Judicial Standards Oversight Committee. Then we have the Law Commission 230th report on judicial reforms, which called for the full utilization of the court working hours. Then it said that cases should be clubbed with the help of technology. It says that similar cases are being heard in different courts of the country. So why can't we have a single hearing for similar type of cases? People have common concerns with the executive and each person has filed their case individually. So how that can be reduced? So technology can play a role in clubbing the cases together. Then some sort of a reasonable timeline have to be designed for the judges as well. Okay, so that is there. Then given the high pendency of cases, the vacations in the higher judiciary must be curtailed. Now vacations, this was a British system. So there was the judges that were coming from the British during the colonial British Raj. So they used to go back to their home country, Britain, and then come back. So that vacation is not really required. So that is what it is saying. So it should be curtailed. And the lawyers also must curtail prolix and repetitive arguments. And sometimes that delaying tactics are also there. So those should be minimized on behalf of the lawyers. So these are some of the steps that are there. Further, there was a constitutional amendment that was new National Judicial Accountability law that was brought about. So which defined as to how the it was to replace the collegium system, the manner in which the judiciary is, the judges are appointed. So it was to change that. But that was held null and void. So the system of appointment basically, so that is also there. So this needs to be refined. Now at the present time we have some sort of a dealing between the executive and the judiciary, which is known as Memorandum of Procedure. So that is still a work in progress. Right, so these are certain things that should be reflected in your answer. Right, this is it. Okay, Russia bombs shelter, 60 dead. So this war is going on, and this was on the eastern side of Ukraine, so eastern region, Luhansk region. Okay, so with the war that is going on now for a long time, so G7 leaders, group of 7 countries, I feel that you need to work extra here with reference to your pre-preparation. So I have taken out some important things for your prelims. So they want to impose, or in fact they want to make these sanctions that are there on Russia to be more stringent. So they want to take measures such as cutting out Russian oil supplies that will hit hard the Russia main source of revenue for the Russian economy. So they want to reduce the dependency of Russian oil, natural gas that is coming to Europe. So that is what they are saying. Plus, they want to make the sanctions a bit more stringent. But that will happen when they find secure alternative supplies, which will take time. So I really, when they say this, I really feel they are not very sincere about what they say. Okay, so this is the group of 7. So this is primarily the developed countries. Initially, it used to be G8, but when the previous Ukraine war took place around 2014, the G8 became G7. That is, Russia was evicted. So these are the G7 countries. It's primarily the developed bloc, and only one Asian country over here, that is Japan. And all the G7 countries, developed countries, they felt that we are very big economies, but still we are not very, very significant. Now there are new countries that have emerged like India, etc. India, China, they should also be represented. So G20 was created for having a wider global consensus. So G7 is there, all G7 countries are therefore part of G20. Now G20, again, you should know, okay, fine, India, China is there. Which of our neighbors are part of G20? So this is how you need to learn to think for your prelims. Naturally, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, they are not part of this. Now I was checking if G7 summit, when does it take place? So it takes place around the month of June. So 14th of June it will take place. Kind of coordinates with your prelims examination also, just a month around. So UPSC can ask you a question on the G7. So, and naturally the new summit has not taken place. So the previous summit, these were the following things that they talked about. So build back better for the world project. So this is the initiative, and this is building upon the existing initiative of USA, Japan and Australia. This is known as the Blue Dot Network. So Blue Dot Network is kind of a certification, certificate which these countries give. If any country of, particularly this low, I'm having a doubt right now. So this low and middle income countries, I think any country of the world is eligible. So it's kind of a certification that this project is environmentally sustainable, financially viable, all of that. So this is it. So it was a certificate, this thing. Build Back Better is an initiative of the G7 where these countries will be provided some sort of a financial support. And this includes low and middle income countries. I categorically check this. Okay, so this is the G7. And the Blue Dot Network is not really what should I say, the G7 initiative. It is not a G7 initiative. It is rather just US, Australia and Japan. And if you see this should be seen in context of Belt and Road Initiative. So it is seen as a counter to Belt and Road Initiative of China, where now we see a lot of countries who were part of this initiative of China are falling into the debt trap. So falling into the debt trap, they have been borrowing money from China for various projects, but now they don't have money to pay back. It is said that actually Europe may also be into the debt trap of China. Okay, so Build Back Better, creating infrastructure in the post-COVID scenario. Then there was Democracies 11, which was about internet curbs, freedom of expressions, specifically targeted at China, Russia and India. Then there was Carbis Bay Declaration. Carbis Bay is in United Kingdoms, where the last summit had taken place, 2021. And they said that we will focus on 1 billion vaccines to particularly the lesser developed countries. So everybody has equity in availability of vaccination. Okay, so these were the key outcomes of the previous G7 summit. Now we have an interview of Lieutenant General G.S. Huda, right? So he was he was saying that with reference to the China, we have this land border dispute, especially the Galwan issue that had taken place in the previous year, 2020, the crisis that had taken place. So he says that China is reflecting a key change in its foreign policy towards neighbors, particularly India. And he says that this issue that took place, the border disputes, which started with the Galwan issue, the Ladakh region, then other states of India also, Northeast also, and in fact they also drew in Bhutan also in that. So it says that it is kind of a series of developments that have taken place, and China's approach has changed in the recent years, going back to 2013. So there is a dilution of the confidence building measures also. So we need to be more hard, we need to be more stern when we are dealing with China. Their approach has been changing and they are being more assertive, and we must demand or insist on the line of actual control, status quo ante. Basically the time period before this May 2020, when this encroachment had taken place on the Indian side by the Chinese. So we need to go behind that time period. So the old time period, pre-existing state. That is what quo ante means. Just a general idea, Delhi likely passed its peak for the current wave, right? So we had this recent case of the coronavirus very recently. So there was sudden reportage of positivity rate cases over here. So it says that it seems that the peak of this wave is coming down. It seems that this was the peak, and again we will see a downfall. And during this time we have had fewer hospitalization, then low criticality. You know how severe that infection was. So we remember the April one that had taken place previous year, very bad. Okay, so these things are not taking place. So this is a very good sign, and seems like we will ultimately go into the normal path. Okay, so this is it. Now this is, I'll just share a perspective. I didn't share a question on this article. So let me do this and then we'll come back to this theme as to how UPSC can ask you. So heavy rain likely in northern Andhra Pradesh and Asani may further intensify into a severe cyclonic storm over Bay of Bengal. So naturally it is a cyclone over here, cyclone Asani, and this article is saying that how there is a cyclone which is, it's basically giving us a progress as to what all happened the previous day, Sunday, and how the cyclone is likely to move. So it's saying it'll move this way, and ultimately when it reaches the land it will fade away. Okay, so this is it. So the cyclone is named Asani. It's in the Bay of Bengal. In fact, every year around this time period we have cyclone reported on the eastern front, and then around October-November time period. Okay, so this is it. Now, things for UPSC perspective. One is from the GS1. GS1, it can ask you as to the genesis of the cyclone, the mechanisms about the cyclone, so that it can ask you. Then it can ask you to classify cyclones on the basis of their speed, the intensity. So severe cyclone, super cyclone, so that way. This can also be asked in your pre-examination. Okay, so pre as well as mains, so that is there. Then in 2013, they also asked you as to how the cyclones are named. So see, this is again a very good hint about how the UPSC is thinking. It's checking your inquisitiveness. Why is it called Asani? What does it mean? In fact, this again can be asked in your prelims. Right, so how is it named? Sometimes we don't even know what, these are not Indian terms. So what does it mean? Okay, so this can be asked. So this I checked on this thing. I have the content over here. Then naturally when the cyclone proceeds, it will create disaster. People will be affected with this. Then so the disaster management side of this. Then what is the government doing to mitigate the threat of these cyclones that are seasonal, that take place from time to time? So what can be done about that? So disaster management. Right, so same subject, same topic can be classified into GS1 pure geography or from the point of view of disaster management. Okay, so this is there. Then there was a reference of Cyclone Warning Center, Vishakhapatnam. Right, so there are different places where we get an update of the cyclones. Okay. So cyclone Asani is a Sri Lankan term. It's Sinhalese language in Sri Lanka, which means wrath. Okay. Now, how are the cyclones named? So there is this World Meteorological Organization, which takes the, which asks the various countries across the world, wherever the cyclones are there. These tropical cyclones take place along the tropical region, naturally. Okay, so they take the names from India, let's say affected countries. So these world countries are classified into different groups according to different cyclonic systems. So regions have been identified. So within that region, let's say the Bay of Bengal and Arabian Sea region. So within this region, all these countries, the nearby countries who are affected by the cyclone, they have to give names to the regional organization of the World Meteorological Organization. Fine. So they submit the names. So India will give some names, list of names. Sri Lanka will give some list of names. Myanmar will give some list of names. So names are submitted by them. Now, as and when the cyclone comes, as and when cyclone number 1, cyclone number 2, cyclone number 3, so the names are automatically given out. Right? So that is how it goes. So with reference to this Arabian Sea and the Bay of Bengal region, Indian Ocean region, so it is done in New Delhi. So RSMC New Delhi Tropical Cyclone Center. So this is responsible to name the cyclone. Right, here the same thing has been mentioned over here. Now India has given the following names. So Nisarga, Gati, Nivar, etc. Right, so once Indian name, then Myanmar name, Sri Lanka name, like that it keeps going on. Now we have an article about the birds. So future looms dark for 48% of bird species. So study points to increased human footprint. Which study? So this can be asked in your prelims. So this is a report by the State of the World's Bird. So this is an annual report. This is an annual report that is coming. So an annual review of the environmental resources. Who releases it? Is it the government? Is it an agency of the United Nations? So who releases it? Right. So it is released by the study led by a university, Manchester Metropolitan University, alongside certain other agencies like so MMU have done, Manchester Metropolitan University, BirdLife International, right? So all these IUCN, so all these institutions are part of this study. They have collaborated over here. Now you need to know like this, you have to work on these topics like this. So this is how UPSC asks. Actually one paper it asks a lot of questions of this type. Then for a very long time it has not been repeated. So but this can be done all over again. In the same paper the question was asked on the BirdLife International. Then Bombay Natural History Society, BNHS. So that was asked, IUCN. So these things you need to keep in mind. Okay. So then there was one other report when I was researching on this, that was State of Birds in India report. Right, so State of Birds in India. Now I thought this must be government, but no, this was again an initiative of the not-for-profit organizations. Now I thought, why not ask a question on the mains perspective? Then I didn't really find it, but I feel this could be an important topic. So again, the theme could be the role played by the birds in the ecology. What are the risks associated with their ecosystem? Why are we finding that their population is coming down? Likewise, a very common question in the UPSC interview also has been the case of sparrow. the sparrow had vanished all of a sudden. Now there are some cases that sparrows are being seen. So this birds thing is important from the point of view of ecology, environment, ecosystem, but no question has been asked as yet on this subject. So maybe you can prepare a note on the ecological services or the ecological impact of the birds. Then what are the risks associated with the birds? So birds being used as food. So it says 14% being used as species are being eaten away. Then hunting related activities, deterioration of the habitat, the wetlands, the forest, so deterioration of that. Right, so these are certain things. Then using them as exotic pets. So actually all the things are mentioned over here. Now what steps is the government taking? So I didn't really find much over here, but if you can see, it can be about the wetland restoration. So that can be done. Some areas for bird protection, bird sanctuaries, that can be mentioned. Right, so such steps can be mentioned by you over here. Naturally, oil and gas is getting very, very expensive. So the price of subsidized domestic LPG increased by over rupees 400. Right, so things are getting expensive. Okay. So there is a scheme known as Pradhan Mantri Ujjwala Yojana, this is the only scheme about this petroleum from the Ministry of Petroleum, only social welfare scheme from that ministry, and that was to provide free LPG connections. Right, so Prime Minister Modi has been emphasizing upon giving cleaner means of cooking to the women, because naturally if you have this firewood etc. and the woman is cooking, naturally those fumes will ultimately affect the health of the woman in particular. Right, so that in that way it is important, but with the increase in the gas prices, you are providing the gas connections but not the LPG gas. So affordability of the household cooking gas, clean fuel, is becoming very, very difficult. So what this study is basically saying is that we have about 99.8% of households, according to the National Family Health Survey. Which agency does this? I think Ministry of Health. So 99.8% had been provided with the LPG connection, but only 45% are actually using this. And here we find that most of the people who are affected, the urban are using this cooking gas. Most of them are using this LPG connections or the piped connections for natural gas. But it is the rural population, you see the percentage of people using, and this is rural, this is the plus ones are the urban. So it is the rural one that are affected. Now if it says 50% are not using, and now imagine that 50%, most of the 55% are using, it's in the urban areas. So urban areas they are using, so most of the people who are not using would be in the rural area. So this is problematic, right? So we have a scheme also over here. Plus I think rising fuel prices, you would know, it's basically the Ukraine war that is there. Right, so it has inflated the prices. Then our currency has been depreciating because of that. When it depreciates, so we import most of the oil and gas, so we have to spend more. So these are certain issues. Last article, disinvestment lull likely after LIC IPO. So we have this public sector company, Life Insurance Corporation, and initial public offer means, IPO means that the first time it will be listed on the stock market. So government was having complete ownership of the LIC. So part of it, it is giving it to the private sector. The ownership it is giving to the private sector over here. And within that, it is also allowing us common in retail investors, like people like us, me and you, to buy some shares of, it is being listed in the share market, so we all can buy some of the shares of the LIC. So when the ownership is being given, part of the ownership, naturally the people will pay the money to the government to buy this thing, naturally. So this is a means of raising revenue for the government, and this is essentially the disinvestment policy. So raising capital, raising revenue, And in this case, unfortunately, most of the times when you're raising capital by selling your stake, you use it for creating more capital for sustainable economic growth. But in this case, given the pandemic and all the situation, it is about bridging the fiscal deficit, which is very, very high. So fiscal deficit is around 6.9%, which I feel it is optimistic. And the government said that we want to reduce this to 6.4%. And this would take place on the successful LIC disinvestment. So the money that will be raised, if it is at the right price, so in that case, the fiscal deficit will be bridged further. Okay, so LIC, it hopes it will be doing well. And this Monday, let's see what happens today. But other companies have not fared very, very well, like the BPCL and Shipping Corporation of India, etc., etc. Now, what the government aims to do is, it aims to raise 1.75 lakh crore in the budget, it said, but then Ukraine crisis took place, the stock market crashed. So thereon it said that, for the previous year, it said that we want to raise only 78,000 crore. So 1.75 is for the previous year, but that didn't happen. So 78 also was not fulfilled. Okay, so this is it with reference to the disinvestment policy. I'm doing it very, very briefly. So eventually I'll share an answer with you, I think, question with you that will help. So this concludes the session, daily news analysis. So thank you for streaming in to IASPrimers with me, Shubhashish. Bye-bye, take care and all the best.